Who must you become? And why must you become the greatest version of yourself? All right. It's yours truly, Jovie J. Sumner. I want to welcome everyone to another episode of the Breakthrough Balls podcast, the Daily Recharge. And today's Breakthrough Balls men's protocol of the day is, who must you become and why? So when we look at the results and the outcomes we want in our lives, a lot of times we ask ourselves, what do I want? Why is that important to me? And all of those are great questions. However, seldom do we ask, who must we become? Seldom do we even hear people talk about who we must become. Oftentimes, it's more of the what or the why. However, what I've realized from being around a lot of successful people, developing myself, becoming more and more successful in my own personal and professional life is that it's really about who you must become. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today, as well as why you must become the greatest version of yourself. So without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump right in. So if we look at who are we currently, the space that we're operating from, or the space that we're currently at, where we're at. And if we say, where am I? That will ultimately lead us into who am I being right now? And if we examine who we're being on a daily basis, if you look at your health, you say, well, who am I being with my health? And you allow that to come to you. If you look at your spiritual life, your being, and you say, well, who am I being right now in my spiritual life? If you look at your area of relationships and balance, you say, well, who am I being in my relationships for myself or for others? If you look at your professional life, which is business, and you say, well, who am I being in business? All of these answers will reveal to you your personal identity. And really, your being is your personal identity. So let me break this down. Your identity, as defined by Tony Robbins, is the single most powerful force in your life. The reason why is when we create an identity for us or a self-definition for ourselves, it has the ability to help us to create, to do, to be, to have, to experience, to share the things that we desire to have in life. However, oftentimes in life, we also self-label and we also allow others to put labels on us. So in today's episode, we're going to briefly talk about who we are being and who we must become. And the reason for that is I have discovered that oftentimes who you become is equally as important as what you want to accomplish in life and why you want to accomplish it, maybe even more. And the other part of that is this. A large part of that involves you growing and progressing and expanding and being more. Another part of that is you eliminating any self-limiting labels, definitions you have allowed to be placed on you or you have put on yourself. Bar none, that is also and equally just as important as who you will evolve into and become. So if you think about it, it makes sense because you want to go beyond where you currently are. You want to rise to new levels. In order to do that, you have to let go of who you have been being to go to the next level. So case in point, for many years in the business world, I tended to hover around certain levels financially, professionally. That's always been. So if I look at, well, who have I been being? And I realize I've been being someone who is okay staying at the same level all of my life, then I realize that is a self-imposed limitation or identity that somewhere along in my life, I either allowed to be placed on me or I created it and placed that limitation or label onto myself. And now the key is I have to remove that label. I have to remove or either grow beyond that self-imposed identity and definition of myself so that I can begin to break through and rise and produce at new levels. Let's move on. Let me say this though, before we move on. If there's an area of your life you're not producing the results and outcomes you want, I guarantee you either have a limiting belief, story, or a limiting label or self-identity you have been carrying with you. In order to break through and go to your new level, next level, and boss up, you're going to have to eliminate that. It's going to have to be eradicated. And or you're going to have to expand and begin to do things outside your comfort zone so you begin to identify yourself as someone who is beyond who you have been being. The second thing I'll say is this. We have to ask ourselves, who do I have to let go of being? So in my case, as I said before, I have to let go of being someone who's only going to do something if it's something I've done before. If you think about it and listen to that, that's pretty limiting. Because what that is saying is I can only do something if it's something I've done before, although in reality, there are plenty of things I have done and continue to do that I've never done before. But in this particular department or arena of my life, I have defined myself that way, and that is what I've played into. And that is what I'm conveying to you today, my friends. How you have defined yourself up to this point is the identity you carry for yourself, and it is either helping you to accomplish what you want and to create what you want, or it is either hindering you from creating and producing the results and outcomes that you want. Again, as Tony Robbins said, your identity is the single most powerful driving force in your life. So it will be very challenging for you to accomplish your greatness and create your greatness if you have an identity of someone who can only do so much, of someone who can never have what they want, of someone who always gets close to what they want. And these are common identities. Some of these I've carried myself. I may even still carry one or two of them. My point, however, is this. We have to begin to remove these limited identities so that we can expand and progress beyond them. Let's move forward. The next thing, you have to begin to ask yourself almost daily if possible, which it is possible. So you have to begin to ask yourself, who must I become? 2 questions. Who am I and who must I become? The first one will reveal to you who you are currently being and how you are currently operating and what's causing you to operate that way. The second one, who must I become, will reveal to you who you must be in order to break through and get to that next level that you are reaching for. Single-handedly, one of the most powerful things you can do on a daily basis. The next thing, why must I become this version of myself? We talked a little bit about how important asking this question is. The juice is in the why. Now, why must I become this version of myself? For me, the answer is I'm simply just too fucking afraid to stay the same all my life. I'm afraid to take it all with me when I leave this planet. I'm afraid to have gas in the tank when I leave, right? My reason, I want to become more for myself and the people who I love and care for. I want to become more to prove to myself that I can. So I want you to begin to ask yourself, who must I become? 1. And 2, why must I become this version of myself? I guarantee if you begin to do this on a daily basis, your life will radically change, your results will change, your outcomes will change, and you will become the next greatest version of yourself, which is a breakthrough boss. Take some time, think about this, let the answers come, don't rush it. That's all I got for you guys today. As always, I want to thank you for tuning in to another great episode of the Breakthrough Boss Podcast, The Daily Recharge. I'm your host, Jovie J. Sumner, reminding you to stay focused, stay disciplined, stay dedicated, and stay hungry, because lions are always hungry for more. Sending you love, light, peace, and prosperity. God bless, guys.